After dropping our friends off in Georgetown, Exumas, we decided to explore the surrounding islands before heading towards Turks and Caicos and finally the Dominican Republic.
What's this beach called again, baby?
Monument Beach.
Monument Beach.
While it's been beautiful beaches and calm anchorages for the past couple of days, this trip has been a true voyage on the infamous Thorny Path, but more on that later.
Nice little haven. Almost stepped on a stingray.
Welcome to Little Bird. We're Tif and Frank from Santa Cruz, California. We launched our New Balance 526 Catamaran in South Africa in 2021. After sailing it around the Cape and across the South Atlantic, we explored the Caribbean to Florida. This year, we're making our way back down to Grenada. Hit the subscribe button to follow along.
Saw some turtles already.
Here we are at Cruisers Beach in the Exumas, Georgetown. Quite a setup here.
Yogi, who's your favorite? Is Keith your favorite?
No, Dale, but Dale's gone.
Poor Yogi. No more Dale and Susie. They went home. Give him a knuckle.
Knuckles? No? No Knuckles yet?
He's like, not now, I'm posing.
We heard from some other cruisers about a beach on the Atlantic side of Stocking Island, so we headed over. The trail was hard to find, but so glad we did. Even though this is a crowded cruiser location, nobody seems to ever venture over to this remote side of the island.
Heading out of Stocking Island and Elizabeth Harbor, going back to Calabash. Start heading to the rest of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. We left Georgetown in the afternoon, planning to get to Calabash Bay in only a couple hours. But at the last minute, we decided to just keep going because the weather was nice all the way to Mayaguana Island. First overnight passage of the season. When we arrived at Mayaguana, we actually pulled inside a large open bay with a fringing reef where we were probably over a mile from land. So it was a really cool place to swim. We felt very isolated and we were really out in the middle of nowhere.
Jump in, Frankie!
Not that bad, yeah?
No.
The water's super warm. Your dog
A little
poops, you know, in situations like
outer reef stop on the way to Turks and Caicos. Head to Turks. Bye Mayaguana. It's okay, Yogi. Lay down. As seems standard for this trip, we started with a bash to windward and short chop, but it calmed down nicely as we got into the lee of the island. I suppose you could question why we were deliberately taking these rougher hops to windward.
Salty sailing.
We know wherever the wind is coming from, that's where we go. The truth is, we had to bring Little Bird up to Florida last season to import the boat into the U.S., but we really wanted to spend more time down in the lower Caribbean. That meant a quick trip north last year, and now a trip south in the late fall. Heading south, there's basically two approaches. Go offshore on something called Highway 66 directly to the Virgin Islands, or point your bows to windward and look for weather windows to island hop down the Bahamas. We'd enjoyed the Bahamas last year and also wanted to see the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, so that meant doing this route, something rightfully called the Thorny Path. Bruce Van Sant wrote a bit of a Bible on making this stretch into a thornless path. He talks a lot about drinking gin and tonics at peaceful anchorages while others bash their brains out beating to weather. It has some good information and I recommend getting it if you're going to do this stretch, but it's pretty conservative and assumes you have a small motor, slow boat, and want to tack endlessly to windward. We found we could take much smaller weather windows than what he suggests, and Little Bird handled the tough passages like a champ. But we did do our fair share of bashing our brains out. We also didn't avoid running the motors on this leg. So thorny or thornless, we chose somewhere in between, and as rough as it felt at times, it sure was fun.
What's up with this upwind sailing, people? Turks doesn't have a ton of convenient anchorages, so we decided to grab a slip in Blue Haven Marina just north of Provo. I guess we had so much fun we actually forgot to take any video.
It was Tif and my anniversary, and I needed to step it up after the awesome light wind spinnaker she surprised me with for her gift to me. I made a reservation at a deluxe resort, and we had a great few days kicking back on the beach and even sailing a bit on their Hobie cats. Of course, special shout out to Keith, who stayed back to babysit Yogi.
We headed back to the boat for another memorable Thanksgiving. We are so grateful for this time on Little Bird and celebrated with a lovely meal made from mostly cans and boxes we had left over from South Africa.
Thanksgiving leftovers. Day after Thanksgiving. Heading into the Caicos Banks. Sapodilla Bay, Turks and Caicos.
I gotta say, it's about time. It's about time. We're finally at anchor, away from the marina. This is what we're supposed to be doing, sitting at anchor, having a Belvedere.
We just left Sapodilla Bay, a very pretty little anchorage right off of Turks and Caicos, and we decided to stay there instead of going straight to Dominican Republic, just to give us a little bit of a break in the passage. And I'm so glad we did, because it was just lovely. We went paddleboarding, Yogi jumped in the water. Anyway, we're on our way now to Sant, and that'll be our next stopover before we go on to Dominican. Fortunately not a sailing day. We're gonna motor for a little bit here, but I don't know that we'll put the sails up. Can we put the sails up?
No sails today.
All right. This has been a funky trip, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Marinas and no sailing.
We got going at daybreak for a leisurely sail across the Caicos banks. The water is incredibly clear but also super shallow, so we had to cross in daylight. We docked under Cockburn Town into the Turks Passage and headed all the way to the southeast corner of the island group, to the tiny uninhabited island of Big Sand Key.
Big Sand Key. Go ahead, buddy. Go swimming. Go swimming. Come on, Yogi. Go swimming.
You want to come in, Yogi? Come on. Come on.
Frank, will you grab that fish ball?
Yeah.
Sand
Key was another one of those magical places that we didn't know a lot about before getting there. We had perfect weather and were the only people within 15 miles. We hung out on anchor for a couple days before heading down to the Dominican Republic, and it was definitely a highlight of our trip. All right, next stop, Dominican Republic. Leaving Great Sand Key, the end of Turks and Caicos. Leaving about 6 p.m. Getting there about 6 a.m. And after a prettier sunset. Keeps on first watch. Double reef main. Hold jib. Take it easy. We only got to go 7 tonight. 7 knots is all we need when we get to sea. As luck would have it, as we were approaching the marina in the Dominican Republic, we had an issue with the electronic throttles. Luckily, it was quickly fixed. Having a little throttle issue here. Hopefully everything goes well. Or it could go really bad. Ocean World Marina in Puerto Plata ended up being a great place to explore the island from. A couple cruisers who had been there a bit worked a deal with the marina office to open a small yacht club in the courtyard and served great drinks and a bit of food. Everyone was super helpful, and some new friends even gave us a lift to the huge supermarket to provision. In some ways, the DR is best navigated by car, and we took off for a few days to explore the mountains and found an awesome eco-lodge to stay at. The hikes are amazing, the people are incredibly warm, and it's also surprisingly inexpensive compared to the rest of the Caribbean.
Enganchado. Tenga en cuenta que no lo agarre por el lado caliente.
Ah, gracias.
¿Sí?
Oh yeah, look at the cruise ship. I can't believe they built all these stairs.
Yeah.
Just 3 guys.
Yeah.
And then this happened. When we got back to the marina, I took Yogi for a walk to a small grass area near our slip that backed up to a sea lion enclosure. The marina happens to be part of a marine park called Ocean World with all those crazy animal shows. Yogi jumped up on the short wall near the grass and suddenly fell over to the other side. When I heard him yelp, I ran over to see that unbeknownst to me, there was an 8-foot moat that fed into the sea lion enclosure. Once I was able to get him out, it was clear he was injured. He completely blew out the ligaments in his front leg. We were heading home for Christmas anyway, but this sped things up a bit, so we cut the trip short by a few days and secured Little Bird in the marina until our return in January. It was a bummer to end the trip this way, but after surgery back in California, Yogi is on the mend.